Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your guides for taking complex information and finding the most interesting insights.
That's right.
Today, we're plunging into some fascinating ancient source material. We've got excerpts from a story found within a commentary on a really well-known Buddhist text, the Dhammapada.
hmm And you can think of these sources almost like windows, right? Windows into a specific moment, a specific conversation from, well, ancient India.
Exactly. And our mission for this deep dive is to unpack one particular story. It involves a physical ailment, an act of generosity.
And a really surprising definition, actually, of what true spiritual worthiness looks like when it comes to giving.
Yeah, it connects this ancient wisdom to a very practical question, really, about how our gifts actually land. So get ready for that journey.
It's a great story. It gives this specific and maybe slightly counterintuitive view on what makes an offering yield the greatest, let's say, spiritual fruit. It really focuses intensely on the recipient's inner state.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this then. So our source material drops us into a scene at Jetavana. Where exactly are we? What's going on?
So Jetavana, it was a major monastery complex, a place the Buddha often stayed. In this particular story, the scene starts with the Buddha being unwell.
Unwell. How so?
The text says he was afflicted by wind. It's a fairly common way in these texts to describe some kind of physical discomfort or illness.
Right. So even the Buddha got sick sometimes. And when he was unwell here, he needed something specific.
Yes, he did. Hot water. It's called uchodaka in the Pali text.
Hot water. Okay.
And he sends a particular disciple, Venerable Upavana, with a task. Go and get this hot water.
And he doesn't just send him anywhere, does he? There's a specific destination.
Exactly. He sends him to the home of a Brahmin named Devahita.
Devahita the Brahmin. Got it. So Venerable Upavana goes there.
He goes to Devahita's house, explains the situation. The Buddha's not well, needs some hot water.
How does Devahita take this request? I mean, the Buddha is sending someone to him.
Oh, this is interesting. The source says he was deeply pleased. He felt it was a great gain. The text uses the phrase labha vatame, that the Buddha thought to send someone to him for help.
Wow. You can almost feel that sense of, like, honor or maybe opportunity.
Definitely. A real sense of being chosen for this task.
So what does he do? Does he just give the water?
He acts right away. He gets a man to prepare and carry a whole load kajas of hot water. But he does more than that.
Oh.
He also includes a packet, a patai, of molasses or maybe sugar candy. The word is vitasa.
So practical, but also something a bit extra, a generous offering.
Very much so. He gives both the water and the molasses to Venerable Upavana.
Okay. And Upavana brings these back to the monastery, the Viharta. What happens then?
He puts them to use immediately. He mixes the hot water with other water and bathes the Buddha.
So a bath first.
Yes, ujadakena nayapetva ujadakena. And then he dissolves the molasses, the festea, in some more hot water and gives it to the Buddha to drink.
Okay, so he uses both parts of the gift. And here's the crucial part, right? The connection between the offering and the outcome. What was the result for the Buddha's illness?
This is where it gets quite dramatic.
Yeah.
The source is very clear. The illness, the abado, it subsided immediately.
Immediately, not gradually.
The text says, Takanadeva Paipasambi. Like in that very moment, the relief was instantaneous after receiving Devahita's offering.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a direct link. An immediate, powerful healing from this act of generosity.
Exactly.
So after this happens, what's going through Devahita the Brahmin's mind? Does he reflect on this?
He does. The source suggests that, seeing this powerful result, Devahita starts thinking more deeply about giving.
About the mechanics of it, maybe.
Sort of. He wonders, to whom should a gift, deyadamo, be given so that it yields great fruit? Mahafalo.
The big question.
Right. He thinks, I should ask the teacher.
That's a fundamental question, isn't it? Especially if you're interested in the spiritual impact of your actions. He wants to know how to make his giving really count, spiritually speaking.
Precisely. So he goes to the Buddha and asks this question directly. The text even gives it to us in a verse, a gatha.
What does the verse say?
It's basically, where should a gift be given? Where does a gift yield great fruit? How indeed does the one offering make his offering successful? Straight to the point.
Yeah, no messing around. How do I get the biggest spiritual return on investment from my generosity? How does the Buddha answer him?
Well, the Buddha starts by saying that a gift given to a Brahmin of such a form, the Pali is evaropasa brahmakasa, yields great fruit.
Okay. But wait, Is he just talking about giving to any Brahmin, like Devahita himself?
Ah, no. That's the crucial clarification. He immediately defines what he means by Brahmin in this context. It's not about birth, not social status at all.
So a spiritual definition, then.
Entirely. He defines this true Brahmin based purely on their spiritual attainment. And he gives another verse, Devahitabrāhmaṇavatthu, to lay out exactly what qualities this person has.
Okay, this definition feels like the heart of the teaching here. It tells us exactly who the Buddha means. So what are these qualities? What makes a recipient yield great fruit?
Right, this is the core insight. The Buddha lists several profound spiritual achievements. First, he says, someone who knows his former habitations.
Knows past lives.
Yes, and the commentary elaborates. Knows them clearly, bhakakatva janati. Not just a belief, but direct knowledge.
Okay, direct perception of past lives. What's next?
Second, someone who sees heaven and the states of woe. Sagapayanka pasati.
Sees other realms.
Exactly. The commentary explains this means seeing all the various heavens. It even mentions 26 kinds in the 4 states of woe, like the hells and animal realms, with what's called dipakaku, divine sight.
Wow. So a kind of clairvoyant ability, seeing the broader cosmos of rebirth.
Precisely. Third, someone who has attained the destruction of birth. Ato jatikaya pato.
Destruction of birth. That sounds final.
It is. This specifically means achieving arahantship, arahanto pato. The state where the cycle of rebirth, jati, is completely ended, kaya. No more future lives.
Okay, so that's ultimate liberation, ending suffering by ending rebirth itself. Powerful.
Extremely. Fourth, someone who has perfected insight and is a sage. The Pali is abhiññā pasito Muni.
Perfected insight. What does that entail?
The texts break it down. It means someone who has fully known what needs to be known, abhiññā, fully understood what needs to be understood, prajñā, abandon what needs to be abandoned, payata, like defilements.
And realize what needs to be realized, sachikata.
Exactly. Basically, they've reached the goal, nibbana, posito nibbana pato.
Yeah.
And they're a muni, a sage, because they possess the profound wisdom, paññā, that destroys all the mental influxes or pollutants, asavakaya.
So someone who has fully completed the path, completely purified their mind, and understands reality perfectly.
That's the idea. And the final descriptor reinforces this. Someone who has finished the religious life completely. Sabhavositavosana.
Finished completely.
Yeah, it points to reaching the culmination, the knowledge of the arahant path, arahatamangyika, which is the end of all defilements. They've completed the whole spiritual journey, the Brahmacharya I've said.
So putting it all together.
This type of person, someone who knows past lives, sees the realms, has ended rebirth, perfected insight, become a sage, fully completed the path, an arahant with these specific super knowledges, abhiññā, that is the kind of person the Buddha in this teaching calls a true Brahmin. And that is who a gift should be given to, according to this specific answer, to yield the greatest fruit.
Wow. Okay, so the Buddha's answer is incredibly precise and, frankly, incredibly demanding. It's not just give to good people or give to monks.
Not in this context, no.
The greatest spiritual return, the mahaphala, comes when the recipient has reached this very specific, extremely high level of spiritual realization, an arahant with these particular knowledges.
Exactly. It completely bypasses things like social status, birth, even just general morality or virtue, which might be important in other contexts of giving. Here, the focus is solely on this profound, ultimate inner attainment.
It really sets, a starkly high standard for the most fruitful kind of giving, doesn't it? It emphasizes the recipient's transformation.
It really does. It highlights the idea that giving to those who have most completely transformed themselves yields the most transformative result, spiritually speaking, for the giver in this specific framework.
So what was the impact of this teaching on Devahita, who asked the question, and the others listening?
Well, the source tells us that at the end of this discourse, this desana, many people in the audience attained various levels of spiritual realization themselves, starting with stream entry, so to Patifala.
So the teaching itself was powerful, transformative for the listeners.
Very much so. And as for Devahita, the Brahmin who started it all with his question.
Yes, what about him?
He gained deep faith, pasana manaso, from hearing the Buddha's explanation. He took refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha Supathyaya, and declared himself a lay follower, an upasaka.
So his own practical question about maximizing the benefit of his gift led him to become a dedicated follower himself.
Exactly. A profound personal shift sparked by wanting to understand generosity better.
And this whole story, you mentioned it has a name.
Yes, it's known as the Devahitabrāhmaṇavatthu, the story of the Brahmin Devahita.
And it's found in the commentary on the Dhammapada.
That's right. Specifically, it's story number 302 in the commentary on the Brahmana, which is the 26th chapter of the Dhammapada, all sparked by a simple need for some hot water.
Incredible how a simple physical need leads to such a deep teaching. So just to recap, we've seen how this request for hot water unfolded into this really profound lesson.
Hmm.
The story of Devahita the Brahmin and the Buddha gives this very specific answer about where a gift is most fruitful. Essentially, it's when given to someone who's achieved this incredibly deep spiritual liberation.
Right. Someone who's mastered knowledge of past lives, sees the different realms with divine sight, has actually ended rebirth, and perfected their whole spiritual journey to Nibbana, an arahant with these specific knowledges.
And it really shifts the focus, doesn't it? Often discussions about giving might focus on the giver's intention, which is important in many Buddhist teachings, or maybe the recipient's need or social role.
But here, in this specific teaching responding to Devahita's question, the spotlight is firmly on the recipient's level of spiritual realization. That's presented as the key factor for the gift-yielding mahaphala, great fruit.
So this really leaves us with something to think about. For you, listening, in your own life, when you think about giving, how do you evaluate worthiness or impact?
So, a practical question for many of us.
Does understanding this ancient perspective, which really prioritizes the recipient's profound spiritual achievement above almost everything else for yielding this great fruit, does that challenge your views or maybe reinforce them?
Yeah, how does it resonate with what you consider profound spiritual achievement, and perhaps where you might direct your own generosity if you were aiming for that kind of highest spiritual described here?
Definitely something to reflect on, thinking about those deep currents behind our acts of giving.